are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Wow, it is great to be back. Thank you so much for joining me. It is Toward Anarchy. I am your host, Michael Storm. It is Sunday. I'm live. It's the 1st of November. And just, thank you so much, as always, for taking some time out to hang out and talk. I know there's an important football game to watch. I know there's so many things going on in the world right now. The important stuff, like the football games. I didn't even realize it's halfway through the season already. It was pretty crazy. I only just was sort of tuned in at all because I don't have any regular TV in my home, not antenna or cable or anything like that. I just have I just pay for a nice high-speed internet connection so that I can just watch whatever I want to watch digitally. And so I don't have any of the local programming or even the sort of what used to be normal program. I don't even think it's normal programming anymore. It's still considered to be the mainstream media, except that I don't think that many people listen to them anymore. But I just had set up another room for my wife. Because of the COVID thing, she ended up having to work from home for part of her employment because of the fact that she's a teacher, and Kansas was the first place. I'm here in the not quite the literal geographic center of the contiguous United States, but I'm really, really close. It's not far from me. So I'm really here in the middle of America, and we were the first, I think, across the nation to cancel schools, to end schools, and to have them go back digitally. And they've worked in over time different ways for them to participate. Some have a mixture of online, some go fully online, some go fully to classrooms, and it's just it depends on the grades, it depends on the student, it depends on the parents. All these things are contributing to it. But no matter what, initially pretty much everybody was online, and all the teachers certainly were, whether they could get all the students online or not. That's one of the reasons they really pushed to get back in, is because they couldn't get all of it, especially in the poorer regions. And my wife works in one of the poorer schools, and so they had to go online. And I had to set her up a space, and one of the things we had to do was put up a couple of monitors. You have to have some monitors. When you're doing this stuff, you need to be able to see some different information. You need to have a couple of them. So she has her laptop, and then we have a bigger monitor. But then it's also a TV, and so we plugged in the rabbit ears to it. The old, not the old school kind. It's still the digital HD ones now that you have to plug in. But we plugged them in, and we just had. This has been going on for a little while now, and so we've had some local television and some local input. Like I caught Seth Meyers the other day, and if I hadn't seen him on TV, you'd been hard pressed to get me to remember who he was. No offense to him, just I don't watch that stuff, and I didn't even necessarily watch his era of Saturday Night Live. He was a Saturday Night Live regular, but he was on. He does a late night show, I guess after Jimmy Fallon's show. And I was surprised because here we are, I don't know how many months we are down the road into this COVID thing, and some of these guys, some of these shows, some of these producers, some of the talent across the board, particularly in that live segment that hosted shows like that, late night, anything that was big on the audience, where you get a lot of audience play. And a lot of these guys, I was surprised to see that Seth Meyers, they're people, him, whoever is really in charge of the throwing the switches over there. Wow, they haven't figured it out yet. And it's interesting because I can speak to this, though I haven't done a lot of live television, just a smidgen of it here and there. I've done a whole lot of live radio, and there's no audience. Even the live television I did had some audience. There's a half a dozen camera guys or producers and things around, for live news segments, or on PBS. Even when you're doing that, I've been on there for pledge drives where we're sitting in the audience, where the group, and then as they bring up presenters and things like that, and there's always an audience there for that TV thing. It seems like, but for the radio, unless so much radio is done at a distance. Everything is done at a distance now. That's what started the conversation. I had to set this studio space up for my wife to be able to broadcast to her students. Everybody's broadcasting from home or from their own studio in space, and the producer and the network is somewhere else, way away somewhere else. And that's always been true of this, and it's been true of it for many, many years that I've been doing radio. It's been a long time. Let's see, what would it have been? I'm trying to think of a year. Give me a year. I'm not pulling up a year. 2003, maybe 4, possibly. Right in that area, I guess. The last time that I actually sat across from I was the producer, so I sat across from the talent, but but not always. In fact, half of the shows they had their own home studios. It's just a thing. There's no audience. There's no feedback. In the Seth Meyers and a number of these others, I have the HBO app here recently because all the changes and all the additions that they've added to. They've been able to get a bunch of stuff. I can't even believe how many things I keep coming across that I really enjoyed over the last 20 years or so, entertainment-wise. That HBO has managed to get their hands on, and on the HBO app, what was it? Well, what was I getting at? I just totally lost it. I got distracted. I'm actually sitting here looking over at the screen, trying to remember the HBO stuff, because I didn't have any plans to talk about that stuff. It just ended up being something I end up babbling about and probably don't have any particular point to. A little bit of a point, just about this whole idea of being here alone without the audience. And I guess that was specifically what it was, is because Bill Maher is on HBO. And I remember back at the beginning of this COVID, seeing some piece of Bill Maher or something, maybe on YouTube or something, and it was terrible. It was horribly performed, and these guys that comedians, listening to comedians talk about it, trying to learn how to adapt to presenting something humorous, to giving a laugh out of an audience that isn't there. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's something that, because I've been alone in the studio presenting my views and my weird sense of humor for a long time, a couple of decades and more, closing in on 3 decades now, that there's been no audience. I'm not even sure there was an audience on the other end of the radio at times, just simply because of the fact that I was in sort of small town America, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just finished playing a 1 hour or 2 hour long LP that kicked off my night. That was the best thing about doing overnights, particularly at K-Rock there. Was the first thing I would do when I would walk in the night is throw on an hour or more long uninterrupted album. That was our thing every night. So that was great, because then I could come in, and I had all of these shows that I produced. I produced Loveline, and depending on where we're talking about in time and when we're talking about these. I've produced these various shows, and I would have to either capture them on satellite and produce the put into the system one way or another their work from the previous night or hours before if we didn't air their live show. Otherwise, I have to run our end of the commercials live while they're doing their live presentation on their end. So again, I've done that in a number of places. Being producers, I've been able to do like Sean Hannity and stuff like that. Some really big shows, and it's been fun in some of the bigger markets. But this is the best right here, just to come here and do my thing every week. And to have the support of a network is unbelievable. To even be able to, I could just do this and just put stuff out like everybody does. The million podcasts that are out there now, you certainly could do that. But to have the support of a network like that, to be able to come here and do this and talk about the things that I talk about, and have them not have really anything to say about my content or anything that I do. It's funny because Alex Jones was on Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan podcast, Joe Rogan Experience podcast this week, and it's been a big thing because, of course, Rogan signed the deal with Spotify, and I keep coming across these stories about the internal workings of Spotify and these people trying to sabotage the podcast because and Alex hadn't even been on yet. Alex Jones hadn't even been on yet since they had done the deal, and so there was anything and everything that they could get to make an excuse. Like one of the things was that one of the podcasts, apparently he came on, Rogan himself, not even one of his guests, not even one of those controversial speakers. It was he come on and he said something about the fires in California and Oregon, in over on the West Coast. They're being set on purpose, and there was some evidence that there was a couple of firebugs, at least. I know I've seen a couple of local news stories, in particular about one individual who was lighting fires that was caught, and then they released him, and then he was caught again the same day lighting fires again. That was an actual news story. So, but he was made to apologize for that, as if it weren't true. Maybe I didn't see it, so maybe the context, he didn't give a clear context like I just did, and the fact that it was just a news. I'm pretty sure maybe I didn't. Maybe I don't know. I ran into this week in putting together this show. Trying to decide on some links. If you go to towardanarchy.com, as always, you can follow along, and I have to talk about the whole thing. I want to talk about the show. I want to talk about the website here a little bit, and then, of course, we'll get into my guest, Matthew Wojtecki, and we'll give away a copy of Brushfire, and we'll chat with him. But I wanted to talk about the website because just yesterday I went, and this is about how important it is, because I've told you a little bit about this. I only have the one show a week. I only have the couple hours. I only have the 1 hour where I just ramble myself. I try to bring in somebody else to cure that, to soften the blow of listening to me. I'm looking at these numbers, and of course, over the past few weeks, I talked about the fact that Facebook they've changed the social media. There've been a big upheaval in it, and over the last few days, a number of people have just disappeared off. They're gone. Their accounts are gone. Jason Bassler, I had him on here just a few weeks back. The Free Thought Project, right? The freethoughtproject.com. I gotta always throw in it's there. The freethoughtproject.com. They got yanked again. And we were just talking about it. We were just talking about how they had yanked millions, but the page is just gone. You just can't log into it. I haven't looked to go see if apparently some had been reappearing. I don't know if maybe they did an update and they broke some things, or they're preparing. Some people have speculated that they've shut down certain pages and certain voices in running up to the election, and that there will suddenly reappear after the election. I don't know. I guess we'll see. That's coming up just a couple more days, so that whole thing will be over. And then of course there's the upheaval and the civil war that begins after that. But I don't know. A lot of people think that it is. What was the one in particular. I have to pull it up because I just had it on my social media, and I don't just share memes or things like that very often. I usually go specifically for words and ideas, not just a picture to let somebody try to guess at. But I'll do it every once in a while. And it was about the collapse, thinking about how in 6 days, so it must have been some number of days ago, the inescapable civil unrest that is expected, and friends, people, comments everywhere that I've seen it. The place it was posted originally, people are like, it's coming. We're here. I think we're on the verge of it. Everybody is really concerned about the fact that there's so much division right now, and that one little thing, and an election's not a little thing, but the butthurt feelings over losing or winning an election may actually turn out to be. I don't know. It's an interesting, scary, different time for America, and people who are a little bit older that have any kind of concept of the past. But to stick with the more important part of this particular conversation that brought me to this was just me talking about looking at numbers and jumping in and checking out some things and seeing where I'm at, and because I don't follow it a bunch, but it's there. And so I looked yesterday, and the website towardanarchy.com has had more than 25,000 unique. Well, okay, now that won't add. That's not true. Sorry, I knew I was going to say that too, and I had even set myself up for it. That's usually how that happens. Okay, 25,000 visitors in the last 2 months, the last 60 days, and so 16,000 unique visitors in the last 30 days. So the month of October, and then 9,000 the month before that. And we'll see how sustainable it is. I absolutely know that a large bit of that was the conversation that I had with Aria DeMezzo. That was a big thing, and it's brought up the numbers across the board as far as the even on the YouTube, the different, there's a couple of different places that you can find the sort of archive, and then of course you can listen to the show and live, or there's the YouTube presentation of it. And then I think I even did that one. I guess I didn't double up on it. I could have. I could have, because I cleaned up the audio and I represented it for this broadcast, for the live broadcast. But it was already out there for the YouTube, and the audio just wasn't great. It was a new headset. I even mentioned that as I was talking to her. But that was a big show. But there were other big shows, the Jason Bassler show, all these, everything. It's been a growth. I've watched it. It's amazing, month after month after month. But just to go on and see that had happened, and to see that thousands of people have, not just a few thousand people like had been, and growing each month, and after being cut off at the knees, that was the point of the social media thing and the changes on Facebook, is that the audience there was cut by 2/3. Instantly, like that. And I guess not even instantly. It was like a slow burn thing. And maybe this lends some credence to the idea of them tuning things down toward the election and closing off some avenues or some ideas and algorithming them out of the picture, as it were. Maybe, just maybe. But 2/3 of them were gone, but they're coming back now, and so that's what I think maybe brings me to that. Maybe they really are tweaking it in such a way. I don't know. I didn't get clipped. Other people have talked about getting clipped. They've talked about their pages getting clipped. I've seen evidence of it. I've seen pages gone. Let's see. The Free Project 4.0. We'll check real quick before we go into the commercial. It says it's there. Huh? Maybe they fixed it. Maybe there was something to that. We'll come back and we'll do some more right here on Toward Anarchy. Matthew Wojtecki coming up in just a few minutes. Okay, go to towardanarchy.com and click on today's date. If you have to go through the archive, you could do that. Just go click on November 1st. That's what you're looking for. I can see you. I think maybe we're going to try to go without the video, there should just be a button on your end that you can click and just shut off the video, and it'll keep the audio. We'll just do the audio thing. That we're here doing this live and tech stuff. What are you going to do?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I just think that it's given us a hard time, and I think maybe if we just go with the audio, that it'll be a little better. So that's Matthew Wojtecki. If you're at towardanarchy.com, you go November 1st, you'll see he's my guest today. We're going to talk about his book Brushfire. He doesn't technically join us for a couple more minutes just because this is one of those short things, and it's the spot where I come in and I tell everybody to go to towardanarchy.com and find the stuff up there and find the links. You'll see that I've shared links where you can purchase Brushfire A Thriller, and then I have a copy that we'll give away today as well. And we'll prod him for some writing tips and tricks, and we'll talk about the concepts, the greater ideas within his book there. Some of the things about direct action and technology and cybersecurity and things like that. Some of the the stuff that definitely is of interest to the people that are really dealing with these things today and thinking about these things today. So, and as always, I shared some links with you, and I started to mention this earlier in the show, just the idea that I had a bunch of I had put links up there that completely different from this, and then I changed them, and part of it was only self-serving. Only part of it was self-serving. I had a conversation earlier this week with Andrew, the Libertarian. He's actually the treasurer of the Kentucky LP's 6th District. He hosts it's a long-form podcast thing. No commercials or anything like that he just shares with his thousands of followers and friends, and it's had a few hundred watches already. I don't know how many people were watching us live when it was on, but we just talked forever, a couple of hours. He just sort of grilled me, and I suppose I answered even some of the questions pretty well about just anarchy, and we'll do it again. We'll have another conversation. I think maybe I'll bring him on the show, let him hang out in this format a little bit, and maybe grill him on the LP and what they think they're doing with voting and stuff. Just a little tit for tat, helping each other out, sharing ideas, and that's what you have to do, because this is what I'm figuring out from looking at those numbers, those crazy numbers, that 25,000 people, 100 gigs of data in the last 2 months. While most of it's not sustainable and it'll be kind of sad to watch it fade away, hopefully I made a good presence for myself and for Anarchy, a good presentation over that time period that it was happening. And there'll be some people that stay. But in looking at those numbers and watching where the links come and stuff, it's 99% from shares, likes, shares, follows, subscribers, whatever that little button there says, however, whatever app you're listening on, whatever program, website, wherever it's at. If it's the network, support the network so the network stays on the air, whatever it is, make sure that you're clicking that like, that share button, because that's where most of this comes from. The thousands of people that were hearing it before were because of you, and the thousands of people that just all of a sudden jumped on to check it out in the last couple of months. That's unbelievable. Just a mad, for me, kind of a little bit freaky, just kind of a little bit, wow, is that really happening? Is that going on? Yeah, it actually is, because I've been watching it from day one, being the webmaster and controlling 100% of the towardanarchy.com website, and watching it grow from nothing, from just being another site and literally me just throwing up some information on there, to it being really well organized right now and showing up in searches and conquering Google and all these things that we managed to pull off over the past year and a half. Well, we'll say we. I like to say we. I speak in that because it's not just me, and that we always includes the network and producer Ken and all these amazing guests that people tune in to be able to even listen to, because surely they're not tuning in to hear me say my quotes. Realize the truth about how evil you could be. Seriously consider the evil that you could do in the world. Be honest about yourself, and you'll understand how evil they are. Realize the truth about how evil you could be, and you will understand how evil they are. I said that. That's We will come back, and Matthew Wojtecki will join the conversation. We'll talk about Brushfire, A Thriller, his novel, when we get back on Toward Anarchy.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Okay, coming up a little bit later in the show, you might have to plug your ears because I will be there may be spoilers. No, there will be spoilers. It's guaranteed. The Mandalorian was back on the 30th, and being as much of a geek about anything as I could be in the Star Wars realm, this Western that's airing called The Mandalorian is really, really cool, and there was some amazing Star Wars geek stuff, original trilogy geek stuff that happened on The Mandalorian this what was it, Friday? I guess it was Friday morning. I got up and watched it first thing. It was available first thing in the morning, so I jumped up and watched it right away. And it was as good as it could have been. And so later in the show, I'll make some spoilers. But if you go to towardanarchy.com, you see my guest today is Matthew Wojtecki. He's an author. He's an anarchist, a voluntarist. He's interested in a lot of the things that we talk about, like cryptocurrencies and understanding the economy in general, but all the things that go with the tech side of those things. These are all themes within his book, Brushfire. And so we'll chat about that. We'll give a copy of it away. It's just a real pleasure to have Matthew back on the show and to catch up with you again, my friend. How you doing?
Good, Mike. Yeah, sorry about the connection. It's pretty stormy here, so in Ohio. So, but just to talk about Brushfire, well as maybe some other things, voluntarism related.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, no, there's a little bit of a tweak in there, but we'll just try, hard not to talk over each other, and hopefully that'll be, that'll cure most of that. That's a problem with the technology that we're using, and it's the Skype. Well, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, any of these things, anything that's on your mind, brother, I'm always just happy to have the chat and the conversation. I would like to there was one sort of thing that I specifically wanted to ask you, and maybe we could start the conversation off this way, and then it just goes from there. And that was in the intent in writing the book. And I'll admit, I've only read just a little bit of it. I only just have the copies since you sent them over. And I'm really trying not to ruin the one I'm reading so that I can pass it on to somebody else. But I'm just thinking about your intent in creating the book. I mean, did you want to be a writer? Was there always some sort of dream there? Did you dream of creating the great American novel or something along those lines, or did you set out really to kind of get the message out there, and you were just able to do so within sort of verse and word?
Yeah. So basically, I think the idea just kind of came to me, and for some of the things that are in the book, and so it actually did correspond a lot with my journey towards voluntarism in general. I think I was pretty far down the line when I started writing the book, and then just kind of the story really, I guess, kind of wrote itself, really. I think it wasn't like I had it pre-planned or anything. I think it just kind of came down on the pages for me. So that's kind of how I write. I don't really keep any outlines or anything. It just I think it just kind of flows for me. And so I had that idea initially, and so I just kind of went with it. And then, and coincidentally, I think right around that time, I was listening to Liberty Under Attack Radio at the time, which is now like the Vanu podcast. with Shane Redliff. So and then right around that time, I think he also decided to create like a publishing company. So that fit really well into what I was trying to accomplish too.
So then you were or weren't a writer before?
I actually do have a memoir out there. It's a military memoir. I did, spend some time in Iraq, which I think we talked a little bit about before, really just, and I think what I saw over there and some of the things that I experienced, like just made it all the easier to dig a little deeper into, down this path to anarchism. So, being just sort of that disgruntled veteran type of mentality, and then just seeing all the waste and the lives lost and everything, that really got me down towards down this path at least. But yeah, like I had written a memoir, and it's basically just like a day-to-day type of journal. While I was in Iraq, like what I was experiencing and stuff. So it's more of like a nonfiction type of history type of thing. And
what was it about?
So, yeah.
What was it about the aspects of war is hell across the board? But what did you look internally and question yourself about what it was you were doing there, or did you see, or was it more like you saw the others sort of wandering around questioning what the hell they were doing there?
Yeah. I think like maybe a lot of listeners on your show, like I really started as like the gung-ho patriot type that really never really questioned militarism or anything. That was sort of like off limits for me mentally, and until I went over there and I just saw like all that was happening, and I couldn't really mentally justify that, like the mental gymnastics that I had to do to sort of justify all the aggression that we were committing over there was it was very hard, and I struggled with that for many years, and I think maybe just
oh no, it was just getting good, right?
and
you broke up for just a second there. Repeat just your last thought there, because you broke up.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
My last thought. So, in terms of what I still kind of struggle with it today, dealing with some of the things that we experienced in the military, and just kind of like shedding that like collectivist type of mentality where everyone has to be in line and follow the status quo and everything. That was kind of a big thing to just give up to, and that was just all towards my journey, I think, into anarchism, and so I guess with the book, I tried to capture that in, because you really only have like 200 or 300 pages to like go down this, tell somebody about the story and everything. So I think like I tried to capture someone legit, like just maybe someone that's living a normal life, and then somehow experiences that like kind of like that epiphany type of thing, whether it be in this case it's a book that the character finds, Henry. He finds it in a stack of old books, and basically changes the way he thinks about the world. So,
and the way that happens, 'cause you kind of had it thrust upon you, and it can affect the way, it can affect the seriousness and how important it is to you in your understanding of it, and it can affect your understanding of it and what particular values you find. Well, because okay, so you've used the word anarchist a few times, and that's a good word since the show's called Toward Anarchy. Mm-hmm. A lot of people misunderstand the word. They see it as being something more than it's not. They talk about it being chaos, and I really try to explain and try to get across the point that it's only just about the no rulers thing. It really doesn't say anything else about anything at all. It has to be tempered with some other understanding. You, in this case, had some real world experience with authority and what it does to individuals. Mm-hmm. In a collective.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I think that was just more motivation to just kind of look a little further. I would say that just maybe what really kind of set me over was just the discovery of several books that I had picked up and started reading. Like, I think Rothbard was kind of a big influence for me with the For New Liberty. That was kind of a huge influence. And then, like, as well as like The Road to Serfdom, F.A. Hayek. And so I think in that way, like, me being more of like an economics type of guy, I think I came towards this philosophy toward, from the economics perspective. I know, like, a lot of people come maybe from the history side of it, but yeah, I've always had a big background in, like, the economic side of it, and it was kind of pretty easy to understand that, like, if government gets out of the way, can all that creativity and the individuals will just flourish, and we've seen that many times throughout history, and there's several examples of that, and so I think it's just really a testament to that, like, economics wise. That's a good way to, I think, if anyone's kind of on the edge about that kind of thing, it's good to read a couple of those books, as well as, like, maybe the Mises type of thing. That's a good way to kind of start out, at least if you're maybe more on the minarchy side.
But I think I would argue that the better you understand the law, the better you understand history, the better you understand economics, the freer you probably are, and you probably treat other people freer. The economics road can be a scary one for people, and you drop names like Mises and Rothbard and Hayek, and I brush up against them. I know who they are. I know all of those treatises that they've put together, and some of them are very thick tomes, and some people may not. It may scare them away a little bit, and so I always like to, as soon as we start talking about that, to anybody that's really early in their adventure, and particularly if they lack an economic understanding, to get Economics in One Lesson, Henry Hazlitt. That is just, there's no. Yeah. Have you read it? You've read it?
I have. Yeah, I think that's a really good book too. You make a really good point about that. Like, that's I've actually recommended that a couple times to people, as well as I think The Law, Basti.
See, man after my own heart. I reshare those two links over and over again. I'm supposed to put them as permanent links up there on the website. I haven't done that yet because I've been distracted by a few other things. But yeah, absolutely. Economics in One Lesson and Bastier's The Law. Really, those are foundational in my own understanding and where I am today. They're completely core to it, in fact. Those are the introductions, and then I think that the people who want to understand more will go off in their different direction and maybe pick some of those other guys to start looking into and delving a little bit deeper.
Right. Yeah. And And I think kind of the motivation for doing the fiction side of it was to maybe incorporate some of that in maybe more of like an easier to understand type of a story where characters, it's kind of entertaining maybe. There's things happening to the characters in there, and it follows like a story where the main character goes down this path. Maybe similar to one that we would do in real life, but then, it's more like shows that like in a fictional environment, it could be possible, like you mentioned, like the cryptocurrencies and everything that's in the Brushfire book. And then also, I think the way that I had approached it was when Henry finds out about that there are some liberated people that exist in more like freedom cells, I think. Maybe smaller groups of people that have decided to liberate themselves from society and have established more of like a or decided to live outside of the collectivist type of society. And so I tried to capture that a little bit in the novel too. But yeah, like I think maybe like we were talking about the fact that it is kind of really difficult to pick up like Human Action or something and read it. It becomes really technical and at some point like may dissuade some people. And so I think like the fiction aspect of that, anarchist fiction, libertarian fiction, like is a good way to kind of see that, we set up these like realms in like a fictional sort of environment, and then sort of see that these types of philosophies can work. And so it sort of makes people more optimistic, I think.
I think it's a way to make things palatable for people who don't understand an idea, and they can see it work in the real world, even just a little bit. We got to go into a break. We're talking to Matthew Wojtecki, and his book is Brushfire. We'll be right back on Toward Anarchy. Imagine how disappointed you would be if you were a young lad and you listened to that song over and over again throughout your youth, and then you grow up and a thing like YouTube shows up and a video appears on YouTube, and it's that video and it's that song, and at the end of it they completely dismiss the entire notion of the song and all of the rebellion and everything that went into it at the time by saying you should get out and vote. It's sad. I guess voting's on the mind, but that brought me to it. Matthew Wojtecki is with me, and we're talking about Brushfire's book. And just before we went to the break, he was hinting at the idea that I don't know where you get this crazy notion from, that entertainment could actually be a good way to present ideas to people. And I'm poking fun, of course, and because one reason I'm sitting here and I have the big screen always, all my listeners know, the big screen is always here, and there's always something poignant going on in the background, from South Park to Kill a Mockingbird. I just throw something on out of my personal collection, and today I grabbed the Mountaintop, the gold standard of exactly what we're talking about here, message inside art, and it's They Live with Rowdy Roddy Piper. So. I take it you're familiar.
Yeah, like it's funny because I actually just watched that movie a couple days ago again. I think it's been like the half a dozen times I've seen it. So.
Oh yes,
classic. Yeah.
It was funny because I bought the most recent version of it that's out on DVD, on Blu-ray. It's like a $30 disc. You can't.
Oh.
Yeah, you can't even get it in that's $30 in the secondary market. It's pretty expensive.
Oh.
Yeah. I posted a picture of it on the social media, and people were like, "Oh yeah, you gotta watch that. You're gonna love that." And I'm like, I'm almost 50, and I've been watching it since the day it was released. I've seen it like dozens of times in my life.
Oh yeah, like I just usually just post like some of those ones where he puts on the glasses, like I've just post kind of pictures of that, like the obey signs and everything, and then like
Yeah, are you on
authority.
Facebook at all? Are you on Facebook?
No, mostly now I'm on Twitter.
Right.
Yeah, on Twitter.
I thought so because I'd look for you a little bit on there, and I'd look for the Brushfire book and stuff, and I assumed that you just didn't go on there. That's what my social media presence is on Facebook. Well, at the moment, I have the one that says "F the conformist." That's a picture of my avatar from South Park. But the other one is him looking through his glasses when he sees looking over the edge of the glasses when he first sees him at the newsstand, and he's looking at the documents and the money and all that. And then the big background picture is the shot of the city with all of those signs that you were just talking about. The conform, watch TV, submit, obey, all that. Hey, we got to go into a break just real quick at the top of the hour, and then we'll come back and we'll do some more right here with Matthew Wojtecki, and we're talking about Brushfire, a thriller on Toward Anarchy. Try to say one word at a time, would you?
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
The cold coffee there. We're off into hour number 2, Toward Anarchy. Go to towardanarchy.com. You're looking for November 1st. Matthew Wojtecki is my guest. Brushfire, a thriller novel. And Jason makes a good point. He says you can buy the book using Bitcoin. You could buy it at Amazon, but it's available at libertyunderattack.com. Liberty Under Attack, the publication a method that you chose. That you mentioned Shane Radliff a little bit earlier in the show. He's been a guest on the show. If you go to towardanarchy.com, look for November 1st, and you'll see I have links there that actually take you directly to the libertyunderattack.com website and the product page for Brushfire and the Amazon link as well, whatever you prefer. Either way, support Matthew and pick up the book. And I have a copy that we'll give away in the show a little bit later too. We were just talking about really the ideas and putting these ideas forth and how to make them palatable for people, and that's sort of the trick. And in doing so and in having that conversation, my aim is to sort of pick your brain a little bit for your process, just to find out, because I'm always curious to know what it is that drives a person to do something to begin with, particularly something with kind of a message. Is it the message that drove it first, or was it other things? Did you actually want to be who you are now, and the message just naturally fit or became a part of who you are as you went along? And so that's it's always interesting for me to know, because I can't separate the two. I think that there's probably a lot of people, maybe yourself included, that you can sort of point to a period in your life. I mean, I that point in my life is back in my youth. It was in my formative years. I've never had any sort of problem understanding who it is that are these people that call themselves anarchists and who don't believe that these assumed authority like the government, even through the process of voting, actually has the morality, let alone should be any sort of idea that any of the individuals would have in principle, that they could control other people's lives. And that's a hard message for some people to swallow, because we're so steeped in it. It's just everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I think one thing to mention too is just kind of I think when I was on my way to doing research and everything for the book, and so I think I didn't really since I was really on my way to becoming an anarchist. I think I was sort of like experiencing the journey while I was writing. So I think that motivated me to do a lot more research, and then kind of incorporate that into the book. So
but that's a beautiful thing for me, because what you're doing is you're doing the thing. It's something that I talk about. It's the difference versus the study of it versus the action of it. And you're taking, it's really cool. It's a really neat thing. You're taking the study of it and turning it into action in the pages of the book. And it's a really neat thing for me to be experiencing. And I want, did you see that as you were doing it? Taking that, almost condensing everything that you had to learn over that period of time, let alone what you didn't know before that point in your life, and putting it into something that other people who would never even consider taking the time might pick it up just because it's a novel, it's a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I think it really just like the writing aspect of it really like was more of like a subconscious thing. Like I just I didn't really control the way the story went. Like I just let it kind of go the way it wanted to. And then like while I was doing that, I was just also like reading other books like the Rothbard and everything. Okay. And then yeah, and then kind of sort of incorporating some of those things into the book. Like I mentioned, like the couple of the chapters where Maxine and Henry get involved in this liberation cell, and so they go along with one of the characters that takes them to like their one of the outposts, and so they do that through like a secure like offline encrypted messaging type of a code system, similar to like maybe what would have been used in like the Underground Railroad type of thing, where they have somebody sets like a message to where the next meeting location is going to be, and they find it in like unmarked mailbox or whatever, and then that's how they find out where everyone is supposed to meet. And so it changes every time, and so that's I think how they get around like invading some of the authorities that way is that like the meetings places always change. And then the other thing is like incorporating like the use of cryptocurrency, like a secure cellular devices like ghost pads, ghost phones, and those sort of things to just keep off the radar of the state. So,
and are those some of the things that you had to go out and spend some time researching?
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like I think even though it's a fictional story, like you can really see where some of these concepts are actually possible and are being used today. Like I think one of the objections that I got early on with like use of Bitcoin and stuff was like, oh, you're never going to go out and buy a cup of coffee or something with Bitcoin, but I've actually done that several times.
Yeah, that's not true. I'm one of those people that I get how all of that works, and so you won't trick me into falling for that trap. Bitcoin has its other problems, and being able to use it to buy a cup of coffee is not one of them.
Yeah, I mean, like I've used it to do that. I've used it for other things, for bigger purchases. I mean, I've used it as much as possible, just I think more so than a store of value, just getting out there and spending it, doing what it was intended to do, trading with other people.
It's a very good thing that you make that point, because, of course, I would argue that to be money, that it lacks that exact value, that exact function, that it doesn't have any ability to have a store value, because while it may keep its wealth over time, the fact is that no matter what, there's no real world application for it. All money as defined to be a store of value, in my definition, maybe other people see it differently, it has to be able to do something other than to provide simple exchange. And that would be exactly what I would be talking about with Bitcoin having any problem at all. And that there's the only thing you can do with it is exchange. That's it.
Yeah, right, exactly. I think there was that bubble, I think in 2016 or 17, like that, where your grandma was asking you about Bitcoin and should I get into it or something. But,
sure.
But I think that maybe just hopefully that encouraged a lot of people to look into it a little further than just
yes. Yeah, exactly. To actually understand the idea of using alternative currencies, period, let alone digital ones, and understanding the benefit of the technology, the idea, the things that go behind what's behind Bitcoin, which is now infinitely more important in my view. And that's the blockchain. And now on the blockchain, you have information on the blockchain, because they have of domain names that you can use instead of these big long addresses.
Yeah. I think there have been quite a few improvements, since early on, and like since then, I think like every time that I've used it, I haven't had really any problems as far as like transfer rates or confirmations or something. It's always been very, very smooth for me. So buying books is a good idea for that.
Yeah.
You can do that on the libertyunderattack.com website. So.
Get a little help in that direction. There's so many. There's so many different ones out there, and then there's so many different tools to manage them. Different wallets and things like that. So it really is something to try to understand. At this point, I tell people that it's kind of it's almost like a collector's market. You're definitely gambling on its ability to be traded somewhere else to be able to make it worth anything. But people are doing it. People are putting it out there, and they're making it available, and they're making it usable in their business. And that's really cool. It's a neat thing to see, because it's one step away from to me it's one step closer to convincing people that currency and money are two different things.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think just from the economic standpoint, as far as what we're currently experiencing as far as the U.S. dollar and just the constant erosion of that, of paper money and everything, it's certainly a good alternative, especially as the government keeps spending us into a giant black hole. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's huge. It's a big deal. And this is some of the detractors for the Bitcoin and stuff like that are trying to argue about the eventual, it's absolutely going to happen, conversion over to mostly digital currencies. And that's a weird thing to me, because that seems to me of somebody who doesn't really understand what these things are, what currency is. It makes no difference the form currency takes. Currency fails the real world application outside of its ability, whether it's greenbacks or credit cards or Bitcoin or anything. Those aren't real things that can be used for something else other than exchange. So you can absolutely map exactly what they will do as long as interest in them holds and as long as they're not manipulated.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that was important to me, that I incorporated some aspect to that into the book. Just kind of the use of those of the digital currency, and then
Cool.
and then I think like the encryption technology really was a thing that I wanted to write, to make sure that I covered in there too, because I think that in the real world, I think that's a really important thing, is just use of encryption. And that's really, I think, a small advantage that the individual has towards the government and the NSA and all the agencies, and even some of these massive tech firms that are using your data for profit. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great that you include these things in the book, and that we can talk about them like this, because this is all stuff that's it's on my own mind. It's on, I think, probably most people's mind. There's some people that are completely oblivious to it and are happy to be that way, and good for them. But I think the rest of us are looking for ways that we can get along with the future, not try to fight it. And that includes this understanding, this base understanding of technology, and what you're doing when you're using it, when you're allowing people to, you're going to play in their playground, their sandbox, like a place like Facebook, and you agree to their pages and pages of terms without reading them, and all the hazards that come with being so open to really the world. The things, if you don't want the world to know it, don't put it on your computer, and don't connect that computer to the internet, because those two things pretty much are the only things that require that information that you don't want to share to be out in the world, to be shared with everybody else. And yet people do it. It's kind of a weird thing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And another thing, I think, just regarding Brushfire and just the way that I decided to write it, is that I think just kind of to be relatable to somebody that is going along, just working the 9 to 5 and getting like a paycheck, and maybe there's maybe you wonder, there's maybe something more to the world than just paying taxes and getting into debt. So I think that was really what I tried to incorporate into the character Henry. And so he, the moment that I think he runs into some different characters as the book goes on, like
right.
who runs these like underground raves in a club, and so he's like kind of the anti-authoritarian type of a character that I wanted to just introduce to Henry. And then so Henry's hasn't really experienced anything quite like that before, and so I think it just it happens pretty unexpectedly when he finds this book and stuff, and runs into Winston, and then eventually goes on the run from the law, like these agents try to track him down. And so I think that's kind of the reason why I labeled it a thriller, is because it's most of the once he makes the wrong people upset, or I think once he finds that book where he's not supposed to find that type of information, then he's basically seen as like a criminal. And I think in some ways, maybe in real life, that's like how we kind of feel, is we're just like outsiders now. We're definitely a minority, and among just the general collective that just likes to do the 9 to 5 job and watch TV and just be comfortable. So
I mean, there's a lot of those people out there. They're definitely a majority, and so I don't know. I don't know when you write something, when you talk about the things, you host a show, you do whatever it is. If you try, I think you have to cover all your bases. You have to speak in the simplest of terms, and you have to go over it from beginning to end to really show them of a believable character. You see, he hasn't run into somebody like a Winston before. That to me speaks of somebody that is probably a normal person, that doesn't deal in sort of black markets, that isn't likely to be found hanging out in a club maybe at 3:00 in the morning, that he could end up finding the owner and the weird things that are going on in the back room. And we're talking to Matthew Wojtecki. Go to towardanarchy.com, look for November 1st, and we'll be right back on Toward Anarchy. Make sure that you push the right button there if you want the people to hear you on the other end of the microphone. They're a smart guy who's been doing this for almost 30 years. Anarchist Matthew Wojtecki is my guest, and he's hanging out with me. Well, we're about to say goodbye to him, but we've been talking about his novel, Brushfire A Thriller, and some of the concepts that went into it and his process of coming about. And it's been just a great yeah, what? I don't know. It's been a great conversation. It's good catching up with you again. You got another novel in you? Are you going to do it again?
Yeah, like I was going to mention that I actually am well underway into more of it's not a sequel, but it's more of a volume 2 type of a thing in the Brushfire series. So it takes place in the not so distant future, and so that's kind of in the works for me. I've been working pretty hard on it, just here and there. So.
And you're going to publish that with Liberty Under Attack Publications again, no doubt.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna pitch that to Shane and see what he thinks. But yeah, and then I also want to mention the audiobook deal that's out there too. Like I noticed it the other day on the LUA website. I think it's like $20 or something for 4 or 5 different audiobooks, including Brushfire, which I think that's a 15-hour audiobook, which and a lot of times, like I think not a lot of people have a lot of time to read, so it's a good thing to listen to, while people are working from home or working from wherever. I know I'm still working from home, so.
Yeah, right. It's funny. I was kind of talking about that earlier in the show, just the fact that, kind of everybody is working. I'm used to it and sort of working alone, even in my own sort of enclosed booth and space where I'm like, people can't even breathe on me and stuff. So I'm kind of used to this world.
Right. Yeah. So, I just thought I'd mention that too. Because I know I've listened to it already, and they've done a really good job, like the narrators and stuff. A lot of different voices and stuff that they use. So it's very well done. So
is that right? It's not just one person reading it with some vocal inflection, but it's actually people doing the voices in character.
Yeah, and I think that's also.
Wow.
On Audible too. If anyone has like an Audible subscription, they can just search that's up on Audible now. So
and listen to it anytime under their subscription.
Yep.
Hey, that's really cool. I did not realize that you had that going. I know I've seen on the social media, Shane, every once in a while put out a call for voices or something like that to read some of the stuff and do that, but I didn't realize that it was being handled almost like a radio play or something there.
Yeah. It there's the female characters are done by Miriam, who also actually did the cover design too. So she's a very talented artist, and so that's another big thing too. So
that's great. No, this is that's what comes together when you get great minds together and you think, oh, let's do a thing and let's put out good work and let's do it for the love of the work and let's do it for the quality of the work and conduct some good business and share some ideas all in the same time. It's a really cool thing that you're doing as an author yourself, but then Shane and all the guys over there at LUAP, Liberty Under Attack Publications.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It's been really, really great working with those folks over there at LUA Pub, and then also I think one thing I did want to mention too was in terms of if the holidays are coming up and you want to give a gift or something, I think it's good. It's a good kind of a book to give to somebody maybe that or a friend that maybe does have some objections, or maybe you just have some trouble talking to them about your beliefs.
What do you think the cutoff age is? What do you think? You think you give it to a 15 or 16-year-old, or you think it's older?
I think it might be a little older than that. I think it's got a little vulgarity in it, but
may not be appropriate depending on the parent. Listen, brother, it's been great talking to you again. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me. I'll be glad to have you back on again, and good luck with the new novel. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime, brother.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
You may be right, but I don't think so. I don't think the math or the science says that you're right, but I think it might be like a meta idea or a meta event type thing I've talked about before, not as important as what people can use it for or misuse it for. So I can't do it. I won't do it. It's just not no. Not going down that particular path. Let me drop a couple of ideas. Are you relative size and distance, and then here's one. As they say, there's no way that we could be moving through space as fast as we are, and that's part of the relative size and distance thing. But there's what was the other thing that's so easy to just, that just kind of occurred to me. It's like one of those things that's like, oh, yeah, when you have a little bit of understanding of science, or at least, just what we can understand of anything, anywhere, at any time, given our limited capacity and our limited existence individually, just having this little bit of understanding and seeing the Coriolis effect. You know what I'm talking about? That's that water turns one way in one hemisphere and turns a different way in another hemisphere when it's draining. So that's kind of one of those things. It's like you can look at it, and if you understand some of those others, you get, oh, okay, I get it. Now maybe there's another explanation for why we don't fly off the planet. It's going however many tens of thousands of miles an hour, spinning around in circles as we fly through space in another direction at another speed. There's reasons. Oh, I'm not sure why. It's just somebody. I see it. It's one of the first things that I'll disconnect you. It's like, dude, no, we're not. No, no. I don't have time to get past that layer of. I don't want to call it stupid, but man, that layer of something that I get, there's other places to go, other things to do. And I know that that's maybe a poor dismissive thing to say, but I'm going to say it and I will leave it. I can't, I won't. I told you I'd give some spoilers. So here they come. If you haven't watched The Mandalorian, then you're going to want to plug your ears or skip ahead a couple of minutes. We'll see how long I end up talking about. No, it won't be bad because, again, I'm a fan, not a fanboy, but I'm enough of a fan of this particular universe because there's so much of it, and it came along very much in my youth, in my existence, and I've been there with it all along. I've never known a world without Star Wars, and so when the Mandalorian, the new season started, it's high expectations. It's an interesting show with some interesting premise. I think I called it a Western, and that's what it is. There haven't been any real Westerns on TV in a long time. It became, I don't know, unless you were a cop, you couldn't shoot at people on TV anymore, unless you were the bad guy shooting at the cop. And I'm not sure if that was it or not, or if they sort of ran out of favor, in popular favor, I guess. But for whatever reason, the Western just isn't as popular as it had been in the past. And so it's certainly not been on any sort of TV, and I think this kind of makes up for it. It's definitely sort of gunslinger, bounty. It's and all the scenes are almost all the planets that they've been to have been more desert than they have luxury and things like that. And so they went to Tatooine, which, if you know anything about your Star Wars universe, is the planet. It's where the Skywalkers raised Luke, and then, of course, he was the beginning of the story, even though they jumped back. But those original stories centered around that planet, Tatooine, depending on which kind of a nerd you are, and there's some number of events that occurred on them that, if you pay any attention to the movies at all, let alone a lot of attention to them, as some people do, you would catch what they call Easter eggs, and these are sort of hidden little gems within the production that hint at the past, or give away some secret to the future sometimes, or they're just things that people are watching. They're not forefront. They're not being talked about. They're in the background, or they're only shown in what is a real cameo, not the comic book description of a cameo, in just for a second in the narrative, and only people who know will catch them. And so immediately in the episode this week, everybody's like, because the Mandalorian has to set out a quest to find his own kind, to find out how to get this baby foundling, I guess is what they're called. It's the race that Yoda is, and back to its own kind. And so he's tasked with that quest, and there's honor, and he's a gunslinger, and there's all that stuff. And so he's going to get this baby, this child, this 50-year-old child, back to its race. And the first place that he's told that he has to go is to Tatooine. And everybody, any Star Wars geek is immediately going to jump on it and go, oh, well, okay, there's a lot of history there. What are we talking about? What do we get to run into? And he's already been to the planet before. He was there in the first season, but they didn't drop any bombshells, not like on this first episode of this new season. So he's in Tatooine. He's on the planet, and immediately when he lands, there's a seed right there. There's a droid. It's Robot 4 Design 5, R4D5. Right? R4D5. And he's right there. He's red. And that's the robot in the first movie that Luke's uncle Owen goes to buy, and the motivator is bad on it. It blows up, so they get R2D2 instead. It's probably a child kidnapping. Kansas City Amber Alert. Yep. If you're in the Kansas City area, look for a red Honda Odyssey license plate AR2992 2112. I don't know. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. But yeah, my phone just let me know. Interrupt my thoughts on the Mandalorian. So right away, the that droid's there, and if you know your Star Wars, I say, oh, that's cool. Well, that's that droid. How'd this person end up with it? You're thinking, there's a story there that they may or may not ever tell. But there's a whole bunch more story on Tatooine, including where the Mandalorians themselves are a part of, because there's one particular person that runs around in the galaxy that wears Mandalorian armor just to get through this, because I could geek on this a little bit all day, because it's core to the Star Wars geek for sure, the original Star Wars geek, and that's the clone that was raised by the Mandalorian. The clone, his name is Boba Fett, and he was, a lot of people believe, killed on Tatooine in Return of the Jedi when he was knocked into the Sarlacc pit, when Han Solo blindly swings around and hits the jetpack and it launches him off and he flips. Ah! It's one of the classic screams, actually, in Hollywood, is that scream of him going over and hitting the edge of the Sarlacc pit and getting sucked in, and the Sarlacc even burps and all that. And so if you don't have any other history than the movies, you don't know that Boba Fett actually got out of that. It's in the comic books. It may be in other places. And it's been so long since I read it that I don't even know how that story concludes and whether it ties in or not. But those of us in the know or in the hope always knew or hoped that Boba Fett was still alive, that he didn't die in the Sarlacc pit. And so the first hint of that is the Mandalorian gets to this place on Tatooine, and they tell him to go to this mining community that's not on the map anymore, literally not on the map anymore. And he gets there, and there's this marshal. He's a guy called the Marshal, and he protects the town. And he wanders in, and it's Boba Fett's armor. It doesn't fit him quite right. He's too big for it. He's too tall, too skinny. But he's obviously wearing Boba Fett's armor. And then to make a long story not as short as it should have been, and to say that again, at the end of this story, the very last scene, as it's all being resolved, and the Mandalorian is leaving with Boba Fett's armor, because it's Mandalorian armor and it's code, and he has to take it back, and if you're not a Mandalorian, you can't have it, and yada yada. And but there's somebody watching from the hill, and he turns around, and it's the actor. It's oh hell, I should know his name, but I don't off the top of my head. But he's older, he's bald, he's scarred, he's dressed in native garb and carrying native weapons, but it's Boba Fett. And so it sets up a very cool, just sort of geek stuff. Obviously, if I spent some time geeking out on it, and the reason I did is because I've been desperate to talk about it to somebody, because I don't even I own a comic book shop, but I'm not over there very often because I don't own a big chunk of it, so there's not a lot of drive for me to participate. I just kind of have to kick in to pay the rent when it doesn't make the rent, and it doesn't. I haven't even had a chance to talk to anybody about it there, and I can't say anything to anybody on the social media because you don't know, somebody's going to jump on you. I've asked repeatedly, has everybody watched it yet, so that I could talk about it? Well, here in my forum, I can just say it's coming. You had to tune out for a minute if you didn't want the spoiler to hit you. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this season. I was last season. It's the only reason that I subscribed to the Disney app to be able to watch The Mandalorian. That was it. That was the only thing. And I like Star Wars, but it was such a great idea after all these years of talk of doing it to finally get a television show. So yeah, it's not on ABC or whatever. But then like I said earlier in the show, I don't think those things, they're not relevant anymore. There's a hell of a lot more people watching the Mandalorian on an app or over a website or on their phone or on an iPad than there are watching anything on save maybe the Super Bowl or something like that on normal TV anymore. It's a joke to even think that those people, that those institutions are a real influence on anything or anyone anymore, or that you would even sit. I guess there are some people that will. They trust that nightly news presentation always. Just some things to mention, just so I don't forget them, because I thought they were important, and that's what this whole thing is about, right? Just kind of bringing some ideas and people and things that I think are going on that's important. TowardAnarchy.com. Check that thing out. November 1st, that's the links for today. You can support Matthew by buying the book at the Liberty Under Attack Publications website or at Amazon there. I provided links to those. You can do that. Get the digital version, let it be read to you, because apparently that sounds like the coolest thing ever, and that may be what I decide to do. I'm going to go check out that deal myself. I didn't know that was a deal. Multiple books and then it being multiple characters, not even just one person reading. There's a couple other links up there that I need to make sure that you noticed. As promised, Bradley Thomas, he was on last week. We talked about why socialism won't eliminate worker exploitation, just in brief, because he mentioned that he had that article coming up. So I had to make it a point to share it and to get into it. I won't dive into it because we'll talk about it the next time he's here a little bit. He'll be back again real soon. I'm going to use him in a way that I had not thought of before, because I had not thought of to do this, because I pride myself on this idea that there's very little foundation in the sense of I didn't read anybody else's philosophy to be who I am today, to understand who I am today. There's very little influence in that terms. I haven't read the great works or anything like that. And so it's really great to make that argument and to talk about things with the glorious excuse of an absence of knowledge. You understand what I'm saying? I can make all sorts of mistakes and excuses, although I don't. That's the point, for having a lack of knowledge of some of these things. Because I don't. I get the core idea of them, and I came to them on my own. I didn't rely on somebody else's opinion of these things, and that includes the opinion on economics and the function of economics and my understanding of what money is and my understanding of what markets are and what goods are and what services are and how they work in free markets and what black markets are and what gray markets are. I understand all of these things simply by definition, even if I hadn't read a little bit about them here and there. But what I'm not a trained economist in that sense, but Bradley Thomas is. And so I'm going to use him as a sounding board for some of these ideas. I've been challenged to do so. I hadn't thought to do so myself. That wasn't the point of having him here. It was just to talk with him. But I can talk with him about his pedigree, his degree, his understanding of economics from his learned perspective. And it happened in our very first conversation where I do believe I'll ask him again the next time he's here. I could go back and listen again, but I'm pretty sure that he made it clear that he knew and understood more about economics and what I understand to be economics, and valued that understanding more than anything he gained from his education. I will ask him that again. That's probably maybe too much. Maybe I'm sure he got plenty from his education, but I'm not sure that real core understanding that I have, that I learned, because I certainly didn't learn it in a classroom. We'll come back and we'll wrap these things up here on Toward Anarchy. Brushfire, give away a copy of the book. Let's do it right now. 1-800-313-9443. Just the fifth caller. As simple as that. That's all you have to do. We'll give you a copy of it. Producer Ken will take care of it. He'll give me your info, and when I'm done with your info, I'll light it on fire, and it'll be gone. I won't keep it. None of that stuff. I'll just mail it to you, and I'm happy to give them away. It's really cool. People have been enjoying them. The ones that I've given away, I've received feedback, and like I said, if you guys read the book, please pass it along to somebody else, and also leave a review for Matthew at Amazon.com if you're one of the people who's read the books. Please do that. Hey, and to prove that I am not, it's 1-800-313-9443. This is only for the live presentations. It's only for 5 more minutes. It's the last chance to do it, and then I'll give away one across the social media. If you follow me on the social media, I will give away one more copy of it there. But what I was going to say is that I can prove that I'm not that much of a geek, even though I just burned off that time talking about the Mandalorian and talking about Star Wars. I couldn't remember off the top of my head who Boba Fett's father was, although Boba Fett is a clone, so he's not really technically a father, not in that sense. But it was Jango Fett. It just occurred to me during the break. This Jango Fett, and I can't tell you whether or not Jango Fett was actually a Mandalorian. I don't know that. I don't know Jango Fett's history, his origin at all. He was happy. He happily took that mask on and off, but I don't know about that. I don't know how deep they were into Mandalorian lore 20 years ago, 21 years ago that the movie came out, that Jango Fett first appeared on the scene. So I don't know. There's some of that stuff about keeping the hat on and the armor being alive and not alive, not in that sense, more like AI kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know where all that fits in. So that just proves that I'm not that big of a geek. That's what I was trying to say. Next week on the show is Ram Dennison, the creator of these wonderful documentaries. I had him on the show before about what happened in Vegas, right? And then the new one is Money Machine. And so we will have a conversation that we're actually taping that one because he's on a flight next weekend to actually finally, after all these cancellations, even though the premiere has happened and it's happened well and the movie has received great reviews and is being seen and watched by people, they've missed out on some of these festivals and stuff like that. They've been canceled, and one of them is actually really happening, and I believe that it was this weekend that he has to fly and do all the stuff that he was like, oh well, maybe we could do it earlier that day, and I'm like, man, you're talking about flying and COVID and premiering your movie and this and that, and I'm like, you don't need to be worried about trying to make my hour show just to just hang out and chat. You got some other stuff going on right there. Why don't we do it earlier in the week? So we're doing that. So Ram Dennison next week, and much more. Oh gosh, Foster Gamble coming up the week after that, right here on Toward Anarchy. So stick around for all that and more. Thanks so much.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.